You walk down the dairy aisle of your local Tesco or Sainsbury's, and you are confronted by a sea of yellow tubs and silver foil. It used to be simple. You bought butter. It was made of cream and salt. But today, that refrigerated section is a minefield of marketing tricks, legal loopholes, and industrial chemistry designed to fool your palate. You probably believe that if it looks like butter, spreads like butter, and sits next to the butter, it must be butter. The data suggests otherwise. In fact, many of the most popular butter brands in the UK are actually selling you tubs of solidified vegetable oil, water, and emulsifiers at a premium dairy price point. But here's what's fascinating. The deception isn't just in the ingredients, it's in the very physics of how these products behave in your frying pan and on your toast. Let me show you how to spot the imposters and save your breakfast. You're watching Protect Our Cart, exposing the supermarket shelf. To understand why the UK butter market has become a dumping ground for inferior products, we first have to look at the yellow fat crisis. For decades, traditional British butter was the gold standard. It was 80% milk fat, churned until the buttermilk separated, leaving behind a pure, rich solid. But as inflation hit the supply chain and dairy prices skyrocketed, manufacturers realized they had a problem. Real cream is expensive. Rapeseed oil and water are cheap.
Slowly, silently, the big brands began diluting their products. They introduced spreadables, lighter versions, and churned blends. They swapped the expensive dairy fats for cheap industrial fillers, relying on the fact that the average British shopper wouldn't turn the tub around to read the fine print. Today, we are naming and shaming the 8 worst offenders, brands that are either ripping you off, misleading you about their contents, or simply tasting like chemical sludge. First on our list is a brand that has practically built its empire on a lie. I can't believe it's not butter. The name itself is a masterclass in gaslighting. You shouldn't believe it's butter because it isn't. It is a margarine spread masquerading as a dairy staple. When you look at the ingredients list on the UK version, you are met with a cocktail of vegetable oils, rapeseed, sunflower, and palm mixed with water and buttermilk. The actual butter content? Non-existent. It is a chemistry experiment designed to mimic the melting point of butter using emulsifiers like mono and diglycerides of fatty acids. The problem here isn't just the taste, which has a distinctively artificial plastic-like finish that coats the roof of your mouth. It's the value proposition. You are paying a branded price for ingredients that are dirt cheap. Water is often the second or third primary ingredient. When you try to cook with this, the high water content causes it to spit and hiss violently in the pan, evaporating away and leaving you with a scorched residue of vegetable oil. It lacks the milk solids required for the Maillard reaction, that beautiful browning you want on a steak or a toasted crumpet. It is a product that exists solely to cut costs for the manufacturer while convincing you that you're making a lighter choice. In reality, you're just buying expensive water and oil. Next, we have to talk about the spreadable trap, and the biggest offender here is Anchor Spreadable. Now, Anchor's original block butter is a decent product, imported from New Zealand with that characteristic yellow hue from grass-fed cows. But the spreadable tub is a different beast entirely. To make hard butter spreadable straight from the fridge, they have to compromise the structure. They do this by blending the butter with rapeseed oil. In the case of Anchor Spreadable, you are getting around 60% butter and a significant chunk of vegetable oil. Why is this on the worst list? Because of the price deception. You are paying a premium price per kilogram, often higher than the standard block butter, for a product that has been diluted with cheap oil. Rapeseed oil costs pennies compared to dairy fat.
When you buy this tub, you are effectively paying the manufacturer to water down their own premium product. From a culinary standpoint, the addition of oil changes the flavor profile completely. It loses that clean, creamy finish and takes on a greasy, oily mouthfeel that lingers. If you use this for baking, your cakes will come out flat and greasy because the oil doesn't hold air bubbles the way solid butterfat does. It is a convenience tax that ruins the quality of the food. Moving down the aisle, we encounter a product that tries to leverage the health halo of the Mediterranean diet, Bertolli Original. The packaging is gorgeous, rustic greens, olives, images of the Italian countryside. It screams healthy and premium. But let's look closer. This is sold as an olive oil spread. Most consumers assume this means it is solidified olive oil. That is chemically impossible. Olive oil is liquid at room temperature. To make it solid, they have to blend it with tropical fats like palm oil and chemically modify the structure. When you flip the tub, you find that the percentage of actual olive oil is often shockingly low, sometimes hovering around 10 to 20%, while the bulk of the fat comes from rapeseed and palm oils. You are buying a tub of cheap vegetable fat with a splash of olive oil added for marketing purposes. The taste is the biggest giveaway. Genuine butter or high-quality olive oil has a complex flavor. Bertolli tastes flat, salty, and synthetic. It doesn't melt into hot toast. It separates into a clear, oily puddle that soaks the bread, making it soggy rather than crisp. It is a triumph of branding over substance, charging you top-tier prices for bottom-tier ingredients. Now, let's address the light phenomenon with Lurpak Lighter. Lurpak is arguably the king of UK butters, and their standard block is a benchmark for quality. However, their lighter range is a disaster for anyone who enjoys food. To reduce the fat content, they have to replace that volume with something. That something is water, a staggering amount of water. When you spread Lurpak Lighter on hot toast, you aren't just melting fat, you are releasing water into the bread. This is why your toast goes limp and soggy within seconds. The culinary crimes of lighter butters continue in the frying pan. If you try to saute mushrooms or fry an egg with this, the water content boils off immediately, steaming your food instead of frying it. You don't get caramelization, you get gray, sad food. Furthermore, to keep the water and fat mixed together without separating, the ingredient list swells with stabilizers and preservatives like potassium sorbate. You are trading a natural, single-ingredient product, cream, for a highly processed emulsion just to save a few calories, while ruining the texture of everything you eat. It is a false economy and a culinary dead end. We must also shine a harsh spotlight on Utterly Butterly. This brand has been a staple of British fridges for years, largely due to catchy advertising and a low price point. But nostalgia shouldn't dictate your diet. Utterly Butterly is not butter. It is classified as a vegetable fat spread. Its primary ingredient is water, followed by vegetable oils. It contains a mere fraction of buttermilk to give it a dairy hint, but it is essentially a tub of solidified industrial oil flavored to resemble butter. The texture of Utterly Butterly is a giveaway. It has that unnerving, perfectly smooth, glossy sheen that looks like plastic. It doesn't crack or crumble, it smears like grease. The flavor is heavily reliant on natural flavorings to mimic the diacetyl notes of real butter, but it falls into the uncanny valley of taste. It's almost butter, but the aftertaste is metallic and chemical. It is a product born of the margarine era, a relic that has no place in a modern kitchen where we understand the value of whole foods. If you are feeding this to your family, you are feeding them highly processed vegetable fats, not the nutrient-dense dairy they need. Then there is the tragic case of Flora Buttery. Flora was once the go-to for sunflower spreads, but in recent years, they reformulated their entire lineup to be 100% plant-based to appeal to the vegan market. While this is great for vegans, it was a slap in the face to their traditional customer base who bought Flora Buttery expecting a buttermilk taste. The reformulation removed the dairy completely, replacing it with fava bean preparations and other plant proteins to mimic the mouthfeel. The backlash was immense. Longtime users complained that the new recipe tasted rancid, chemical, and like cardboard. The buttery claim on the packaging is now entirely reliant on artificial flavor engineering. It lacks the richness, the creamy depth, and the satisfying melt of the original recipe. It is a zombie brand, wearing the skin of the old product but containing something entirely different inside. It stands as a warning against buying products that rely on heavy processing to mimic simple natural foods. Let's talk about the bottom shelf, the supermarket value brands, e.g. Tesco Stockwell, Sainsbury's Hubbard's Food Store. These are the cheapest blocks you can buy, often wrapped in paper rather than foil, sold for a significantly lower price than branded butter. You might think, butter is butter. Surely this is just a generic version of the good stuff? Wrong. While these blocks are legally butter, meaning they are 80% fat, the quality of the cream used is vastly inferior. These value blocks are often made from sweet cream that has been frozen and stored for long periods, or sourced from the absolute excess of the dairy industry. They lack the fermentation and culturing that gives British and European butter its tang and depth. The result is a block of fat that tastes of nothing. It is waxy, pale, and flavorless. When you bake with it, your cookies lack that rich, buttery aroma. When you put it on toast, it provides grease but no joy. Worse, independent tests often find higher moisture content in these budget blocks, pushing the legal limit. This means you are paying for water weight. It is a false saving. You are better off buying a smaller amount of high-quality butter than a large block of this tasteless fat. Finally, we have Clover. Clover markets itself as having no artificial ingredients and being made with real buttermilk. It sits in that gray area between margarine and butter, confusing consumers into thinking it's a natural dairy spread. However, Clover is still predominantly vegetable oil. The churned marketing is a clever ploy to evoke images of traditional butter making, but you cannot churn vegetable oil. The issue with Clover is the texture. Because it relies on palm oil and palm kernel oil to stay solid at room temperature, it leaves a waxy coating on the tongue that real butter does not. Real butter melts at body temperature. Palm oil has a higher melting point, meaning it lingers in the mouth. This affects the flavor release of whatever you are eating. If you put Clover on a hot cross bun, you taste the grease first and the fruit second. It dulls the palate. Despite its family favorite status, it represents the mediocrity of the British spread market, a product that convinces you to accept a blend of cheap oils instead of the real thing. So where does this leave us? The British dairy aisle is a trap. We have normalized the consumption of water-pumped, oil-diluted, chemically stabilized yellow sludge. We have allowed manufacturers to take a simple, ancient product, cream and salt, and turn it into a high-margin industrial commodity. The pattern across all these 8 brands is the same: the removal of expensive natural ingredients and the insertion of cheap, processed substitutes. They trade on your habit. They know you grab the same tub every week because your mom used to buy it, or because it's on offer for £3. But every time you scan that tub of Spreadable or Light, you are voting for lower standards. You are telling the industry that you don't care about taste, texture, or purity as long as it's yellow and spreads easy. But the tide is turning. Consumers are waking up to the fact that fat isn't the enemy, processing is. Real butter, despite the demonization of the 90s, is a whole food. It contains 1 or 2 ingredients. It behaves predictably. It tastes incredible. The brands we've listed today represent the worst of the old guard, the relics of an era where convenience and cost-cutting trumped quality and health. In the future, we predict a return to basics. We are already seeing a surge in farmhouse butters, raw milk butters, and brands that refuse to blend their cream with oil. But until that becomes the standard, you have to be the gatekeeper of your own fridge. You have to turn the tub around. If you see rapeseed oil, water, emulsifiers, or palm oil in the first 3 ingredients, put it back. Do not pay dairy prices for vegetable oil. Do not accept soggy toast.
Protect your cart, protect your palate, and demand better. Because life is too short for bad butter. The next time you reach for that yellow tub, ask yourself, are you buying food or are you buying a chemistry set? The choice is yours, but now you know exactly what they're trying to hide.